Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. Today I'm chatting with Jamie Dykstra, founder of Jamie Dykstra LLC, where she helps time-crunched business leaders and entrepreneurs enhance their brand through her ghostwriting and strategic communication offerings. Jamie and I got connected by a mutual friend of ours and immediately hit it off. With a background in financial services, specifically as a CPA and corporate accountant, Jamie has a unique understanding of what financial services leaders can offer when they set out to write a thought leadership book. Now, in this episode, Jamie shares insights into the process of setting intentions for your book, whether you're writing it yourself or working with a ghostwriter. We discuss how to clearly define your goals for the book, both your personal intentions and your intentions for the audience of the book, the importance of identifying and overcoming reader objections within the content of your book, and the numerous benefits of collaborating with a ghostwriter. Now, Jamie's expertise in both finance and writing provides a rare perspective that's especially beneficial for anyone in the financial services industry who's considering a book project. Jamie also has an incredible free resource for anyone who's interested in starting their book project today, which is a free nonfiction book blueprint, and you can find the link for that in the show notes. So if that's of interest to you, grab that from the show notes. And without further ado, let's dive in. Jamie, I'm so excited to have you here today on the Finance Marketing Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Hillary. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I would love to start if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do now. We know that you are a ghostwriter for personal development, thought leadership books, but you also have a background in finance, which is really pertinent to my audience. So I would love to hear about who you are.
Yeah, my journey's been a curvy one, that's for sure. I like to say curvy paths are more fun. So I went to Notre Dame. I got a bachelor's in accounting, and I was kind of on that normal expected path for someone with an accounting degree. Contemplated Big Four, didn't go Big Four, went into corporate finance at a bank. And yeah, was loving working in finance, did a little bit of FP&A, did some project management while I was doing that. Went and was like, well, natural next step. I got a master's in finance, and was like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, so let's just dive head first. And then I was like, like finance is cool, but actually I think I like operations and program management and stuff like that. And so, I did that for a bit. And then I was like, I need a corporate break. I had really great experiences, but I hit a point where I was just like, I need to take a step back for a second. And so, I worked at family business for a while and was like, I'm going to take a summer break and then I'll dive back into it. And then I made it to the end of the summer and I was like, I'm not really feeling this. I've really enjoyed my freedom and autonomy, and like, who doesn't, right? And then I was like, well, you know what? My solution to this is start my own business. But I didn't know what I wanted that business to be. And so I've been told that I'm a good writer, but I just never really honestly thought you could make a career out of writing, because all you ever hear is, people that write their own books. And I'm like, I don't know if I can make a whole career out of writing my own books. Like, how does that work? And so I did pursue kind of that path for a while. I did a little bit of coaching because I had hired a coach and was like, wow, she's amazing. And then she's like, have you ever considered copywriting before? And I was like, couldn't even tell you what copywriting is. So no. And she explained it and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And so that's how I started my business, was on copywriting. And then I heard about ghostwriting and was like, that is the stuff. That is what I want to do. Like, I love helping people tell their stories. And I love, like, I've always wanted to write books. I just didn't want to write, like, I'm like, how do I possibly have enough of my own ideas to make that my whole career? And so I love to help other people tell their stories. And I think books are like on a bunch of bucket lists for people. And so it's really cool to help them achieve something like that, get their name on the cover. And just generally, I think books make a huge impact, especially for people that offer high ticket services. Not everybody can always afford that. And so it's a way to make an impact on people that maybe aren't quite there yet, but maybe are someday. And so I think the accessibility is really cool. The inspiration, all of that, it just lights me up. So that's how I got to where I am today.
Oh, I love that. I can relate to so much of your story, Jamie. I also spent the first 5+ years of my career, I was a writing teacher.
Okay.
And I was also kind of getting burnt out. I taught college level writing, which I did love. But then when I was thinking about what else could I do, my thought too was, well, writers don't make any money. Writers, they just either write their own books, and maybe you're the next J.K. Rowling, probably not. But I thought that was the option. I had never heard of copywriting. And then when someone said it to me one day, I was like, I would be so good at this. So I love that. I love that. Now, I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain about these thought leadership books. Like you said, I think it's kind of a bucket list item for a lot of people, especially in financial services. I see a lot of financial services providers developing these really unique philosophies about finance and these really unique ways of helping people on their financial journeys and finding financial success and things like that. So they have a lot to say, but who has time to write their own book?
Exactly.
Exactly, right? And so, before we hit record, we were talking about one thing that's really, really important to do when you decide, okay, I'm going to write my own book, whether I write it myself or I hire a ghostwriter. And that's all about setting intentions. And so I would love to hear you talk about what it means to set intentions for the book and what some different intention setting exercises might look like.
Yeah, yeah. So I think intention setting is important in really any exercise that you do, but especially in this case for a book, because you're going to do a few things when you're setting your intention that we can dive further into. You're nailing down kind of your target audience, and you can relate to this from copywriting. Same thing for book. You want someone to feel like they're sitting in your living room, right? And you're having a conversation with them. You're not preaching at them. It's just a conversation. And so if you can really kind of think about one person, maybe an ideal client that you've had, or someone that even, you've worked with or partnered with or whatever, that you're going to be speaking to while you're writing the book, that makes a huge difference. And, even when you have a ghostwriter, of course, they're going to capture that voice for you, but they still need to know what's your vision for that person, right? And so that's really going to help start to bring the book to life. And obviously, then you need to set intentions for both yourself and your audience. What do you want to do with the book? How do you hope to grow your business or your brand or whatever? What are your goals as it relates to that for the book? Because making money should not be your primary goal if you're going to be writing a business or personal development book. Obviously it's a great benefit to it, but the primary goal should be lead generation or speaking opportunities, things like that. And then you need to have a goal for your audience too, right? Because that's going to kind of direct the whole premise and story arc of your book. How do you want them to feel while they're reading it? What do you want them to do after the turn of the last page? And so, that really kind of sets the foundation of where your book is going to go. And the intention setting is so important because that's really the foundation of kind of making your outline and the direction that you want to head, and making sure that the book is not just kind of, rambling on about things that you've learned or want to talk about, and it makes that impact even greater.
Right. One thing that I would love to go back to that you said at the beginning is, thinking about that one person that you want to write this book for. One question that I had, and I love this idea of thinking about like a really ideal client that maybe you've worked with. Do you think, is it more helpful to think about someone that you have successfully helped, and so you're writing this book as if, you're going back to the beginning with them? Or do you think it can be helpful to think about maybe that perfect client that got away, someone that you weren't able to help? What approach would you recommend?
That's a great question. And I think it depends, right? But I would say it's a lot easier to approach it from that ideal client
Mhm.
perspective because you've actually been able to see the struggles that they've gone through and how they've overcome them, objections that you were able to help them overcome. And I mean,
Mhm.
that's applicable to any industry, consulting, coaching, financial advising, things of that nature. And so I would say it's a lot easier. But another thing that actually you can think about too is thinking about writing to your prior self, right? Like, if
Mhm.
where were you 3 years ago? And, the things that you've struggled through to learn. And that's how so much of thought leadership is developed, right? Is you went through the struggle and now you're trying to make it so other people don't have to go through that same struggle. And so,
Mhm.
also writing to your prior self is a really great way to approach it.
Ooh, I do love that. Okay, well, next I would love to dive a little bit further into setting, intentions for yourself when you set out to write a book. You mentioned making money should not be one of those things. I couldn't agree with that more. I think that's so true. And it's quite disappointing for people who put all this time and effort or maybe money into a book thinking they're going to make money from it and then they don't. But what are some other, goals that you've seen people set or intentions that people have for their books that you think are are just as good, if not better, than making actual book sales?
Yeah, exactly. And book sales is a great way to put it, right? Making money can still be an objective, but that might come in the form of lead generation
Mhm.
or filling groups or selling courses or things like that. That's absolutely a really common intention of writing a book, right?
Mhm.
But other common intentions is I see a lot, which is really refreshing, is just like I want to make an impact. I want to help people
Mhm.
overcome this issue, or I want to help people with this. And so um, just impact is a really great one. Brand building is obviously a huge one, intention wise. And then, of course, you can have the intention of opening up other opportunities and speaking engagements and things like that. And I know on one of your prior podcasts, you guys talked in depth kind of about the benefits of a book. But you can have tangible intentions like that. But you also might have the intention like writing, even if you're not doing the physical writing. If you hire someone to help, it's really a cathartic process, right? Of
Mhm.
reflecting on where you've been, where you are, where you're going, and kind of helping like raise your energy levels. And it's kind of refreshing, I think, to kind of see like, oh, how far you've come. And really, I like to think of it too as kind of an all in one goal setting accountability exercise. And that to write a book, you kind of feel like you need to have a clear vision too, right? And so it kind of forces you to do that.
Ooh, I love that. And then what about intentions for readers? I mean, when you're thinking about financial advice and things like that, how would you recommend to a financial advisor or a financial coach that they kind of solidify or get specific with what their intentions might be for their actual readers?
Yeah, there's two ways to look at this. Two ways that two approaches, I guess, you should look at. Um, One is feelings. How do you want your reader to feel
Mm.
after they've read the book, or even, while they're reading the book? And especially in the financial space, I think you want readers to feel empowered and you want them to feel hope. And you also want them to feel confident in what they're doing, right? And so striking that right tone of how you want your readers to feel as a financial advisor or coach is really important, because you definitely don't want them to feel like overwhelmed of like, oh my God, there's all these things I should be doing or could be doing and I'm
Mhm.
not doing, and I should probably just give up. Like, what's the point?
Right.
um, and so tone and feelings is really important, because without addressing that first, you can't get to part two, which is kind of the tactical actions that you want your reader to take at the end of the book. Because if they don't feel empowered or they don't feel that hope or that confidence, whatever you want them to do is not going to matter. And so I think tactically intentions, especially in the financial space, is, maybe start contributing to a retirement fund, like
Mm-hmm.
$10 a week or something small. I mean, that's small, but everything matters and it compounds. And so maybe it's something like that. Or maybe it's starting to subscribe to a financial podcast or things like that. And then, that can go all the way up to buy my course, sign up with me. But I think, especially in the marketing world, we know that a lot of times people like start small and work their way up. And a book is a great trust builder, but you can have various intentions, and I would say having all of those is kind of a good thing. Like, here's some actionable steps you can take. And if you'd love support, here's how I can help you.
I really love that, especially, kind of thinking about the first part of your book your objective is really to get them feeling confident and hopeful, and in the right space to feel like, okay, I can make changes. Because I think ultimately that's what we want a book to help someone do, is to make a change, right? To make some sort of change. And that can be tough to get your audience, in that right headspace. So I love thinking about the first part of your book as kind of fulfilling that super important objective before you throw all of the tactical stuff at them.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of that, we were talking about this before we hit record, is helping them to overcome objections. Because if they're like, well, I can't save because of this, or I can't do this. Our brain loves to come up with narratives that keep us in the comfortable known zone, right? And so in your book, you want to make sure that you're addressing your reader's objections. That's why it's so important to come up with your ideal reader too, is, why do they think that they can't make this change? And that could be beliefs that they have, that could be circumstances they think they have, it could be just societal beliefs. Who knows? But you have to break through those throughout the course of the book. Otherwise, the message that you're trying to convey is just going to fall flat, because then it's probably going to be like, well, that's great. And yeah, that's cool for other people, but it doesn't apply to me. And then there goes the intentions that you had for your book, right? People aren't going to start saving that retirement money or buying that course or whatever the case may be. And I had a friend comment on one of my LinkedIn posts from a couple days ago about, you can feel the energy of a book too, right? And she's like, if I feel like this subtle energy shift of I'm not really feeling this, then it becomes a whole different reading experience and it doesn't really resonate. And so I think intention and overcoming objections, that all plays into the energy, and words have energy even on paper. And so all of that is really important to helping make sure that the book resonates with your reader and the message really sticks with them. And I do this. I know other people do this. When I find a book that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this one so much, I tell everybody about that book, because I'm like, this helped me so much. Please read it. And, as an author, of course, you love that then. So more impact and more leads, or whatever your intention was.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you talk about this, it's so interesting. I'm finding that like titles are popping into my mind of books that I think have done this really, really well, and also titles of books that I don't think do that very well. One that comes to mind for me, and it's funny because it is such a popular book and I know that people love it, but one that I felt just like really overwhelmed by and not totally sold by the philosophy was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. So have you read that?
I have not read it. I'm familiar with it, but honestly, I haven't read it because the title even overwhelmed me, where I was like, automatically doesn't feel possible. So nope, I'm going to move on.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I've listened to Tim Ferriss podcasts and I really like him as a person. And, I do appreciate what it is he's trying to do, but his book did not sell me on the fact that like, this is totally possible. Whereas a book that really did kind of hype me up and make me feel like, oh, this is possible for me, is a book that I read last summer called We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. Are you familiar with that book?
No, but I'm going to add it to the list for sure.
Oh, I loved it. And I actually listened to the audio version, and she narrates her own book, which I think can also be really powerful. But, it was this other big thing. It's these two big things. Be a millionaire or 4-Hour Work Week or whatever it might be. And just the way that she made it feel so possible in her book, I think, too. Just really, I tell everyone about it. I send it as gifts to people who are graduating, you know. It's like,
Right. I love it.
yeah. I'm curious to hear if there are any books that come to mind for you that uh, either do a good job or don't do a good job of helping the reader overcome their objections.
Yeah. Yeah, the book that always comes to mind for me, and I love that. I mean, it shows how powerful it is that you had two titles come to your mind right away, and
Mhm.
like you said, they both are big titles, but one of them's like, "Oh yeah, I can do it." The one that I love that I think does a great job at making you just like, I was fired up after I read it. Like, I'm making changes. Good thing. Like, I love my life, but I'm going to love it even more. Is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Yes.
Yes, that's another one for me that just changed my life.
And I feel like it has like a cult following
Yeah.
because it does that. People are recommending it, reading it multiple times, and I think he does a fantastic job with that. And I think it's so important, like you said, in your examples, it's so important in the financial advising and financial coaching space, because if you don't feel in any coaching space really, but especially financial, if your client doesn't feel like, yes, I can do that, then they're probably not going to be with you very long. So then it's going to be like, well, I'm overwhelmed instead of feeling like I can do it, or why would I spend the money if it's not really going to do anything?
Right.
And I think too, another thing is that people get caught up on, and I understand this, a book is a big financial and time investment and things like that, but not everything needs to make it into one book. It shouldn't
Mhm.
always be in one book, because that's a real quick way to overwhelm your readers. If you try to fit all the knowledge that you've gained in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like, that's a lot that you've learned even in the
Right.
year. Think about the amount of stuff you learn in a year. So
Right.
it doesn't always need to fit in one book. It could be a Taylor Swift approach, different era. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I do think that's important too, is like, and it's one of the hardest things about being a writer or being a course creator or an advisor. It's like I have to get really clear on what the most important things are, and I have to let go of the things that, I still think are important, but ultimately are they going to overwhelm my audience or my client or something like that. I think that's such a challenge. Do you have any advice for how to do that culling when you're writing a book?
yeah, I think not to continue to come back to this, but it starts with your intention, right? So
Mm.
as a project manager, you always work backwards, right? So
Yeah.
we start with that intention and we work backwards from there. So if you want your reader to, if you're focused on retirement planning, um, okay, then that's our intention. We want them to start that account, maybe buy your course on retirement planning. Then we're going to work backwards from there. A lot of business books are 8 to 15 chapters is pretty typical. And so what are the top 8 to 15 messages that you want to get across? And
Mhm.
so I think the outlining process is really powerful in that, because it's not just like, oh, sit and talk to me for, let's just have a conversation. Outlining really sets the stage for those future conversations that we have. And so here's the 8 to 15 topics that we want to cover. And then you're going to have subtopics underneath that. And so we want to keep those focused too. And so once we have that outline that's focused, then we can schedule conversations that are focused on those topics. And so, as I'm doing an interview and saying, teach me about this, that's really a benefit of a ghostwriter too, is that they're kind of acting like a coach themselves and being like,
Mhm.
tell me about this. Okay, we're a little off track here. But that's okay. And so, really helping to structure that and keep it focused. But, if you're doing it yourself, I would say start backwards, do your intention, do your outline, and start there and get down. And if you're writing, something you're writing about doesn't fit in with anything of the
Mhm.
outline, then it probably needs to go. And, an outline's a living, breathing document, of course, but if it's totally not related, then maybe you should reevaluate if it makes sense to be in that book.
those are such good tips, and actually made me think of something else that I'd really like to ask you. There's all these benefits to working with a ghostwriter. It's not just like, okay, I don't have to do the writing myself. The writer can do it. I think actually working with a ghostwriter has a lot of benefits and can probably make your book better. Do you want to talk about that for a minute? You mentioned it's almost like working with a coach who can help, see what's the phrase I'm looking for? Help see the forest for the trees. Whereas
Yeah.
you as the expert and the one who has all the experiences and things like that, you might just be looking at one tree, right? And that can really impact how your book goes. What are some other benefits?
Yeah. I wrote a blog about this a couple months ago.
Mm.
Why your ghostwriter should be more than just a writer.
Mm.
And so the coaching, I think, is a huge benefit, right? And a book is a really personal thing. And even if it's a business book and you're covering tactics, your stories are still going to be woven in there. That's part of what makes it you and your thought leadership. And so a ghostwriter can help you. I mean, first and foremost with that structure, right? It's intimidating to start a book if you've never done it before. And so, like,
Mhm.
what do we want to talk about? How do we want to structure it? And so, tactical coaching perspective, but also then in the interviews, the classics, like, can you tell me a little bit more about that in areas that we want to dig into? Or, having kind of that third party, like, objective view on stories and teachings and how other people might view that, I think is really powerful and helping to structure that and also pivot if needed. Like I said, the outline's a living, breathing thing. So, you drop a, wow, I wasn't expecting that bomb story during an interview, then maybe, like, let's think about if we need to make some adjustments here. So maybe that was a really cool thing that we want to focus on. So that's a big part of it. I think, honestly, project management and communication is a huge thing, is that you have someone that's keeping you organized, keeping you accountable, setting up all the folders, keeping everything where it needs to be and on track. And then at the end, this isn't true of all ghostwriters, but kind of helping with, it's not necessarily the scope of the work you're going to do, but helping to connect you with other people that are really going to, it's not just handing over a manuscript. It's like, hey, what kind of publishing do you want to do? I can help connect you to a designer and this marketing firm and this and that, or a hybrid publisher, or whatever the case may be, or a PR firm. And having kind of a super connector as a ghostwriter, I think, is a really important aspect too, because it's great to have your manuscript, but if you just have this huge manuscript and then you don't know what to do with it, then you're like, okay, now what? So I think all of those are really huge, and finding a ghostwriter that is going to do all of those things and not just do the writing for you.
I love that. Well, Jamie, as we kind of start to wrap up here, one question that I have enjoyed ending with lately, as we think back over our conversation, we've talked about intention setting, we've talked about helping your reader overcome objections, benefits of working with a ghostwriter. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you think, could kind of round out our conversation, or anything that you just kind of want to highlight that we already covered?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, I think, be selective in who you choose as your ghostwriter. It doesn't, of course, you're hiring a ghostwriter to make the process easier. So you want to make sure that you're actually hiring someone that's going to make it easier. But my approach too is that you always want to make it fun, right? It's probably a bucket list thing that you're doing together. And if it's not, then it's still, it's a brand building or a thought leadership, and it should be fun. And so, find someone that's going to make it an enjoyable, fun experience that can really help bring your story to life. And I'm a big proponent of, making sure that kind of your energies are similar and ways of working are similar to set both sides up for success, right? Because, it should be a fun process. And if you're not enjoying it, then you're going to get a bad taste in your mouth about the book writing process and, maybe marketing in general, who knows? So that's my big thing is, make sure you vibe with the person. And I think everything else from there is figure outable.
Ooh, I love that so much, because not only, are you going to be spending a lot of time with your ghostwriter and sharing a lot, but it's a pretty vulnerable process too, I imagine. And you're sharing lots of stories and having to dig deep. So I do think, much like advisors and their clients, being able to have just like that human personal connection with your ghostwriter is probably super, super important. So that was a great piece of advice to end on. So Jamie, if people want to learn more about you, where can they go to do that or get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my website is easy. It's jamiedykstra.com. And on the website, you can contact me there or set up a free call. I always do free discovery calls, or if you just want to chat, you can book that meeting space too. And then I'm on LinkedIn, and I am on Instagram, but I don't use it as much as LinkedIn. So primarily my website and LinkedIn, I would say. And then I have a free nonfiction blueprint guide, totally free. So whether you want a ghostwriter or not a ghostwriter, if you're thinking about writing a book, it's a great thing to check out. It's like 10 pages and not a huge time investment. And I think that's going to be linked in the show notes too. So
amazing. Yes, I will link to all of those things in the show notes. And Jamie, I just want to say thank you so much for this conversation. I think you shared a lot of great stuff with us. And thank you to all of our listeners of the Finance Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next week.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Hillary. This was fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.